Okay, today we're going to look at some key differences between the original CX-10 Atari joystick, which was shipped for approximately the first year, notably with the Heavy Sixer, 1977 to early 78, and the CX-40, which was a lot cheaper to produce, a lot simpler mechanism, and less of a distance on the action when you push the button. So the first difference, a big difference, is that the CX-10, the original, did not have a top indicating the proper orientation. You can see the CX-40 does, so they added the top later. Second difference is, of course, you're not going to find these typically, but there's an indentation on many CX-10s where this bezel that's at Atari or either Sears fit in there. These tended to pop out. This is actually a reproduction sticker, but there's going to be a lot of times an indentation here that would have allowed that to fit. Okay, third is, well, we mentioned it, but to have its own qualifier, the button has a longer distance to travel. I think it's called the action, I could be wrong, versus the CX-40, much less of a travel when you press it. Okay, fourthly, the CX-10, the original, has a rubber boot, which transitions immediately into the plastic rigid part. There is no intermediary, but on the CX-40, there is an intermediary. There's this clip, this round disc here, which kind of holds in the rubber boot. So CX-10, the boot, you can actually see where there's 4 notches where it connects to the rigid part of the controller, but this one, CX-40, does not have that. All right, moving along. The original CX-10, which is maybe 5% of all of the CX-10 and CX-40s combined, a lot more rare, scarce. You can see that the screws are set a lot more shallow versus the CX-40, mass-produced, later to come out joystick. They're more recessed. Okay. Another difference is, if you look at the plug end, the male end, the CX-40 is going to have a wider, so it's the one on the right here, part of that. You can see how that's more narrow right here. So that's the CX-10. That's the CX-40. See how the CX-10 has a more narrow tapering right there. Also, this part's a little bit different in the perimeter contour versus the CX-40. So this one is a collector's item now because they're super rare. If you can find one that has the original bezel, that makes it even more valuable. But this one also, you have to put a little more effort into it, give a little more newtons, a little more force. But to me, just personally, this one feels like a more quality joystick. I guess it was just overly, or quote unquote, overly engineered, very complex. And apparently these were not the best with respect to ergonomics and responsiveness. But beyond that, they're very similar. Look how the CX-10, though, the button appears to be a little bit, has a larger diameter. Put them side by side, see how the CX-40, the button's smaller, the diameter. All right, well, hope you learned something new. See ya.